Hi, I'm Adrienne Smith, and welcome to another episode of The Naturalist. We have a very special episode lined up today, but before we get started, I want to give a quick thanks to our sponsors, Om Mushroom Superfoods and Bimbo Bakeries USA. Om Mushrooms, founded in 2010 by preventative medicine expert Dr. Sandra Carter and mycologist Stephen Farrar, creates organic mushroom supplements designed to support a wide range of functional benefits, including cognitive function, gut health, energy, and overall well-being. Grown in a BRCGS AA rated facility in Vista, California, their products deliver full spectrum purity and potency. Om's available nationwide at retailers including Whole Foods Market, Sprouts, and Walmart, blending ancient wisdom with modern science to make mushrooms accessible for everyday use for one and all. So I admit I've been really nervous about this episode. I am a huge fan of both of the brands that are represented here today, Dr. Bronner's and Wild Orchard Tea. And I've been really looking forward to this. We're going to talk about the Purpose Pledge. So I'm joined by Les Szabo and Michael Ham. Les is the Purpose Pledge board chair and the chief strategy and impact officer at Dr. Bronner's. And Michael is the co-founder and president of Wild Orchard Tea Company. So it's so nice to have you both here today. Nice to see you.
Very nice to be here.
And it's great to talk about what we're going to talk about today. So real pleasure.
So if you attended the State of Natural and Organic presentation at Expo West either this year or last year, you will have heard of the Purpose Pledge or in any of the many other events that have gone on at Expo West and outside of Expo West around the Purpose Pledge. And I have a ton of questions for you both today, but I feel like it would be a mistake to dive into those without just giving a brief overview of the Purpose Pledge. So I was hoping, Les, you could do that for us.
Sure. So as mentioned, we actually officially launched at Expo West in March, and that was after a 9-month pilot. So we piloted the program. The original pilot was launched in March of last year. And so, and lots of learnings and lots of real development of the pledge. We had a number of companies that were very active in helping us develop the pledge language and all the commitment fine print. And it was this process of really trying to balance what a high integrity social and environmental standard looks like with the practical experience and the sort of real world case studies of these companies, and just trying to, strike that right balance. And the pilot companies were amazing in helping us build out the language and also in baselining their own operations. And we landed in a really good place. And so all of the 10 commitments, and as well as the entire operational model of the Purpose Pledge was dialed in over that pilot period. And we're very excited about where we landed. And since then, we launched with the 16 companies, as well as 7 what we call commitment catalysts. And those are the organizations that help support. They offer the direct support, the technical support to the companies in helping them achieve the different commitment areas.
So what are some of those 10 commitments, and just to get an idea of what those are like?
Yeah, it starts with the first commitment is around governance, and governance is really about the highest decision-making body within a company and ensuring that that body is fully on board with the company joining the pledge, as well as the plans that they are submitting. So approving those plans, approving resource allocation, people and financial allocation to make sure that those commitments are being achieved. And then we also just thought about all of the key relationships that a company has. What are the most important relationships? Who are those most important stakeholders? And it's really about employees. It's about customers. It's about a company's community. It's about the earth, and it's about the capital providers. And how do we take how how do we operationalize that stakeholder economics, and how do we operationalize being in right relationship and honoring those stakeholders appropriately? And so each of the 10 commitments can be traced back to a particular stakeholder, whether that is employees through living wage, or the fair and balanced compensation, or inclusion and employee well-being, or it's the earth via climate action, or our zero waste commitment. And so in every case, there is that direct connection back to who that stakeholder is and how do we best honor that relationship with the stakeholder.
I think one of the things that I think is really interesting, well, there's a lot of differentiating factors, and I think it's really important to point out that this is not a certification, right? It's a movement or a commitment from companies, but you're not getting certified as a Purpose Pledge company.
We call it a learning community, and it's very much, there are obviously certifications involved with the specific commitments.
Yeah.
So there's certifications around supply chain integrity and how we work with our farmers. There's certifications around zero waste, around climate, around living wage. And so the certification piece is third party, rigorous, authentic and credible certification is part of the program, but at the Purpose Pledge level, it is not a certification, and there's no fees involved with joining the pledge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that that's an important distinction. And the other thing I just wanted to point out, and maybe you already mentioned this, is that Purpose Pledge is only for companies that rely on agricultural-based supply chains.
Yeah, that's really a key part of this, is that sort of sector specificity. So it's really important that the companies involved have, for this leader-learner model to work and for us to really develop the right case studies, the right best practices, you need that common base of experience. And all the companies, whether they're personal care companies or food companies or apparel companies, they all have agricultural supply chains. And it's really critical for us because for these types of companies, 90+% of a company's social and environmental impact happens within their supply chains, whether it's scope 3 emissions or whether it's, fair labor standards for farmers. There's so much impact there. And so you can't really be a purpose-led company if you have an extractive supply chain.
Michael, I wanted to ask you so how long have you been a member of Purpose Pledge?
We just joined the first cohort, the launch at Expo West. We were one of the 16 companies. Les first introduced me in July or August of last year. I have heard because there was the pilot last year. I saw things here and there through LinkedIn and other things, but I didn't have the bandwidth to dive deep into it. But when Les introduced it to me and I took a look, I was really taken aback by the amount of work, the organization, the structure. And I'm very thankful to Les, Dr. Bronner's, all OSC, all the commitment and the dedication that was put into it. And so when I looked into it on a deeper level, I realized this is something that we need to join. And we'll talk about those reasons as we go along today. But I first of all just wanted to start and say that it's an amazing infrastructure that guides and acts as a beacon for purpose-led companies, mission-driven companies to really back everything up through governance. So, excited to talk more about it today.
Yeah, but I guess that's what I was kind of curious about because Dr. Bronner's Wild Orchard, so many of the companies that are already involved in Purpose Pledge have such strong commitments to ROC, to regenerative organic, to, other incredible commitments. So why the Purpose Pledge? Why choose that on top of everything else you're already doing? So what are your reasons, Michael? You said we talk about it later. I think let's just talk about it now.
Okay, sure. So there's a lot of work, whether you're ROC certification or doing USA Organic or fair, all of those things require time, resources, and it's a lot. Purpose Pledge is no different. Anything of substance, there should be time and effort put into it, right? But there's going to be a lot of people in the audience that also run purpose driven companies or mission driven companies. But what I can say as someone who joined the pledge is it takes your values, your intentions, and you put governance to it, and then that's where the credibility and that's where the execution and that's where the validity comes, right? And so it's almost like a guidepost for us too, because we certainly have values from the farm starting 25 years ago. We planted by seed. It took 10 years to even harvest. It takes a lot of patience. The founding farmers were like, we're not going to cut corners. We're going to allow the deep roots to settle in deep, and we're going to let nature grow this. And so that takes a lot of patience, dedication, and passion. But then how do you instill those values upon the whole organization, especially as it grows? And so when I looked into Purpose Pledge at a deeper level, I realized the governance is the key, right? You can have the strongest mindset from the founders, but as you grow, things can start to break. We've seen a lot of great companies out there that started strong, and then through massive growth, things change. I mean, retailers have seen it, I'm sure. As consumers, we've seen it. And I think the real benefit and magic of Purpose Pledge is because the government is the governance of a company is the top layer and it's instilled through governance. That's what allows it to be more timeless.
So how do you, how does the pledge support companies, especially smaller companies, as they scale? Because there's always that balance between staying true to your core values and then the scalability.
Yeah, I think it is an important thing to acknowledge, and it's not always just a kind of win-win-win situation, as we hear many people say. And I think, to Michael's point, the Purpose Pledge can help companies navigate these issues in a very intentional way. And so, because there are challenges and potential compromises that a company has to make as they grow, and if you have the pledge sort of anchoring how you think about your entire company operating system, then it gives you clarity. It actually supports your scaling, because you have your sort of impact goals, you have your commitment goals very clearly defined. And then those become the kind of filters in helping you, make the right decision. And so you can evaluate any sort of growth opportunity, whether it's a new product launch or a new channel or a new big box account, against those commitments. And then you have a sort of rubric for thinking about whether that is the right move for you or not. And so it really goes beyond just the product on the shelf. So it really is also about, advancing farmer livelihoods or its overall environmental health or consumer well-being. And so you're taking into consideration those other stakeholders, while also obviously ensuring that the product or the initiative is gonna perform commercially. And so it's just a different framing of how you think about your growth and development. And as Michael said, it's sort of, it's sort of a roadmap for doing that.
So we're like, our commitment at the farm is direct trade, really focus on the quality of the soil, animal welfare, like all those things associated with ROC. But as a company, like, there's so much more than that. So what I can say about the Purpose Pledge, when I was looking at the 10 commitments, I could see that it was very holistic. It pretty much addresses I would say all of the vital elements that any purpose-driven company should be looking at on a day-to-day basis. And so for us, our strength was product quality, our wage, living wage, governance, like having that commitment from the top, to really keep high standards. But then there were other areas like circulator, zero waste. We never, we have recycling in our office, but all the way from scope 1 to scope 3, we never had a plan for that. And so what Purpose Pledge, I saw that it could really push us to be even better and more holistic. And that's really one of the great benefits of Purpose Pledge and why we decided to join.
Bimbo Bakeries USA bakes brands families know and trust, like Sara Lee Bread, Thomas's, Entenmann's, Oro Wheat, Little Bites, and Ballpark. They're baked and delivered every day by more than 20,000 associates across the country. Bimbo Bakeries USA is a proud part of Grupo Bimbo, the world's largest baking company, with operations in 39 countries. The company's purpose of nourishing a better world is brought to life through its work to improve health and wellness, protect the environment, support the communities where they live and serve, and by valuing associates.
Can I just add something to that? Because that's a really important point that Michael just made, that it is this sort of integrated, holistic framework. And, what we have found just via Dr. Bronner's, but also via our pilot program is that, consumers, you can be doing well on one of these commitment areas or how you treat a particular stakeholder like employees. But you can showcase that, you could talk about it, you could platform those in terms of your own storytelling. But if you're not doing well, and considering kind of all of the stakeholders and in our case, all of the commitment areas, then that's really, it's not enough, because being purpose-led means that you are considering and honoring all of your stakeholders and not just selecting one or two. And the consumer expectation these days is that you can't just sort of, be selective here and pick and choose which stakeholder you're going to serve. You have to really have a model, a business model that is doing well across the board.
So given that it is such a holistic commitment to so many different areas, I know one of the things that's so different about Purpose Pledge is the accountability piece. I mean, that's really the key to it, right? And so I'd love to hear, I know there's a progress tracker that I would love to hear a little bit more about how that works, but also just, what does it look like for Michael, for example? You said that was one area that you hadn't really thought about. What is the timeline like for companies to adhere to these commitments, or what is the progress tracker track? How does it work?
The great thing in terms of how Purpose Pledge was designed is if you truly have a mission-driven company and you want to lead with purpose, there's going to be an entry point. You just have to look, and it's like a mirror, right? A guidepost. And the great thing is by 9 years, you have to achieve all 10 commitments, but then it's broken down into 3-year cycles. So you have a 3-year plan and you're tracking and you're adjusting and you're doing everything you can to meet that goal. And then it resets for the next 3 years and you set your goals and you try to, so it's almost like a bite-sized commitment I don't want to understate it. It's very, it's tough. It's high standards, but you are able to do it in 3-year cycles, which makes it much more achievable, realistic. And because you have a 9-year timeline to achieve everything. So I think that was wonderfully designed. A smaller company like ours, where we only have 5-6 employees, one of the things we're trying to do is, hey, there's 10 commitments. Everyone choose a commitment that you're passionate about. So you be the team lead on that. And then I think it'll help us build a stronger company, because everyone involved in the company is taking responsibility for one and teaching others, hey, let's do this.
I think that's so awesome, Michael. I had not heard that before, but that's so just the idea that the commitments are being championed by different people within different departments of the company, I think is really key. And and we could talk about the progress tracker and sort of our definition of accountability, but one of the features of the progress tracker is that not only do we ask companies to share their plans and share their annual milestones and how they're tracking their progress in terms of achieving those milestones. But there's also a video, there's a video portion of that where if you go to Wild Orchard, you click on progress tracker, and then you see these progress bars on how Michael and team are doing relative to each of the 10 commitments. But then if you want to go deeper on a particular commitment, let's say supply chain, you click on that, and then it goes to Wild Orchard's 3-year plan. And above that, you have a video, and you have the opportunity to really talk about that 3-year plan, talk about the sort of programming around that 3-year plan, and it really brings this sort of what can be viewed as just sort of objectives and key results and very sort of dry sort of planning material, and it brings it to life. And to Michael's point, it's the people that are doing that work. They're the ones that are going to be presenting on their work. And with Bronner's, we have 10 different people, 10 different commitment leads for each of the 10 commitments. So, I mean, what a fantastic opportunity to celebrate those people and give them this platform for talking about, the work, the day-to-day work that they're doing around that commitment area.
Is there an expectation that consumers would visit the site and look at these progress trackers? Just out of curiosity. I mean, they can, right?
They can. We hope they do. And there's been a lot of conversation internally around, just kind of on your earlier point about accountability and who are you accountable to? And yes, we are accountable to our consumers and the public. And that's why we're offering this public visibility so that anyone can see what a company committed to and whether it's delivering. And then also just this idea of peer accountability. So you're in this community and you're learning with each other and you're actually pushing each other to do better. And so that's sort of a second layer. And then the third is just the internal accountability and, how teams align and how they work together within a company in a very sort of structured way. So, right now we're very focused on the community and building out the community. But there will be a more public facing element down the road. And the preliminary thinking is that once a company hits all 10 commitments, that's when, for example, an on-pack seal might make a lot of sense. So, but in the meantime, we're actively talking about the companies and their work around each of the commitment areas on various social platforms, and we absolutely want consumers to dig deeper and to really hold us accountable. That's the whole point. Is the consumers can see whether we're walking the walk here or not.
And your goal for the community, we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, is to have 25 companies on board for 2026. That's correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, though, that's a key element as well. And I think a unique feature is this idea of an ecosystem of support. And so, as Michael mentioned, you have many well-intentioned entrepreneurs that really need the support in terms of how they operationalize purpose. And it's this idea that we have this ecosystem, not dissimilar from, let's say, the tech sector, where companies have incubators and accelerators and venture capital that supports their growth and development. We're trying to replicate a version of that support system for companies looking to be purpose-led. And so the idea is that we start with a manageable number of 25 companies, and we launched with 16. We have quite a few that are in the pipeline right now. So I think we're going to achieve our goal of 25 companies by year end. And then we have these 7 commitment catalysts that are offering that direct support to those companies. And it's very much about, coming up with the most cost-effective, the most convenient, the most impactful solutions for these companies so that they don't have to kind of reinvent the wheel on their own or independently. You have this shared community where we're exchanging notes, we're exchanging best practices. And so they get to that commitment achievement, as sooner rather than later, by doing it as a community versus, the whole thing being a solo journey.
I love that. And that reminds me of, there was a great video that we showed at Expo West that you showed during the State of Natural and Organic. And one of the quotes from the video was, there's no one single person or one single company that can do it alone. And I just think that that's so beautiful. And I also think it's so beautiful that the company makeup so far for the pledge, you have small companies, you have these kind of giants like Dr. Bronner's, like Guayaki. And so I think it's all the more meaningful because you have all these different size companies there. I love that idea of supporting these brands on that journey to.
And no company is meeting all 10 commitments out of the gate. None of them are. And so in some cases, Dr. Bronner's is a leader. In other cases, it's a learner, because there's other companies that offer. Yerba Madre was a huge inspiration for us in terms of really thinking through our own supply chain. And even though we were buying organic, on spec and price, that wasn't enough. Yerba Madre they were real pioneers in looking at how farmers, what were the on the ground conditions for those farmers. Mm-hmm. And it very much inspired us to just go deep on that issue. And so, and move from not only organic, but organic to fair trade, and then organic, fair trade, and then regenerative. Yeah. And so it's been a very many year process, but it is the companies that are, once you have that kind of critical mass of companies and as sort of, I think inspiration for the whole industry, if you see a critical mass of companies that have been able to pay all their employees a family living wage, or that all have, supply chains that are and they're sourcing from regenerative organic farming operations, then it just shows that it can be done. And that's when the sort of industry norms begin to shift, is when you have concrete examples of successful companies, large and small companies that have done it and have done it successfully.
Michael, I'd love to hear just, I sometimes, you hear from small brands, and you've talked a lot about this, Les, about what the pledge does to support smaller brands. But you hear from small brands saying, well, we'd love to be organic or we'd love to be regen, but it's just so hard and we're so small. And it's so, what would you say, Michael, to small brands that are interested in the pledge, or that feel like it's just like an insurmountable goal to be this purpose driven or this transparent?
Right. So let me share what I felt during Expo West. There were several purpose pledge events where all the pledge companies and catalysts came together and interacted. Just listening to everyone, let me put it this way. So the purpose pledge is like, just like each of us has our own individual body and we have 206 bones, it gives us structure from which we can function every day. We have our organs. They all have a function, right? We want to keep them as healthy as possible. And then we have the brain, the governance of our body, right? Makes the decisions. And so, and the decision is, I want to be impactful member of society, become a net positive impact on the people around me. I see very close similarities. Purpose pledge is almost like the structure. And when these individual companies come together, it's that human aspect, that community that pushes each other, just like we do as individuals. Come on, let's do this together. Let's be better. Let's be an example. Let's be a model for the next generation. Why do we have to protect the environment? Like, let's do it together. So what I'm so excited about Purpose Pledge and going from 16 to 25 is it's just growing a bigger set of like-minded organizations, whether small or large. And we're able to, I've learned so much from the big brands like Dr. Bronner's and Yerba Madre, just talking to people from the organizations, but I learned so much from similar sized companies as ours, right? So even in the body, you have a thumb, you have a heart. You could say the heart is much bigger, has much bigger role, but imagine if we didn't have a thumb. How could we, how could we function normally? So everyone is a valuable member of the community, whether small or large.
Michael, you kill me every time, man. You're so amazing. Well, I don't want to take more time than what we have. Is there anything else that you want to add that we haven't touched on? I mean, I feel like there's so many different aspects of this that we could talk about, but yeah, what else? What are we missing?
The idea of just the idea of how we create value for these companies, and the concern out of the gate was, we're just creating more administrative work and paperwork and is this going to be viewed as just another certification? And I think that what we discussed just about that ecosystem of support is really key, and it's happening already. We have this example where we have a number of companies that are either sourcing honey or beeswax. And we have this amazing operation out of Tanzania that needs support, that needs to transition from organic to regenerative organic. And we're essentially pooling resources and pooling our demand to figure out how to create, the appropriate ROI for this farming operation to make this transition. And so it's literally just us coming together, with the right offtake agreements and saying that we can actually flip an entire supply chain, just based on this way of pooling demand and pooling resources. And so, and a lot of the smaller brands, they can't source directly from whatever international source. But if they are doing it alongside these larger companies, then it all becomes viable. And so, I mean, that to me is just like such an amazing example of how when you do come together in this sort of, with a common objective or common approach, that, you can do things in a way, you can pull levers that you would not be able to, just completely independently or alone.
Well, and I mean, that's amazing, Les. And I certainly don't want to reduce all of the work that you've done for, I'm guessing, years towards creating the Purpose Pledge. But I feel like we could kind of sum all that up in like, duh. That just makes so much sense. It seems so obvious, right? But I know that there's so much work behind bringing that to life. But yeah, that's amazing. What about you, Michael? Anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, another thing that I really felt during Expo West, just interacting with the pledge companies, the catalysts, there's such a spirit of camaraderie and wanting to actually do business with each other. And I thought that was so interesting. And we have matcha, we have tea, and other Purpose Pledge brands, they have like superfoods or granola or things like that. And we were just talking, why don't we do a collaboration amongst, the Purpose Pledge companies? And I thought that's another way to impact supply chain, keep the integrity, and then, just make sure that everyone is, surviving and being able to make the impact that they want to. So those are really, really great takeaways that I got from Expo West and just talking to other Purpose Pledge companies. It's a community, but it's not just in word and action. Those are all great, but it's also through collaboration as well.
So I'll be on the lookout for the new Dr. Bronner's matcha soap. You heard it here first.
Careful what you wish for.
I'm there. Well, thank you both so much. I mean, this was I've been looking forward to this, and I feel like we've just touched the surface, but thank you so much for being here. It's just been such a pleasure to talk to you, and keep on doing this great, inspiring work. It's amazing.
Well, and I just want to say thank you to New Hope as well. You've been such amazing partners in terms of supporting the pledge and its launch, both last year and this year. So thank you for giving us the venue and the opportunity to get the word out. And it feels great to be aligned with an organization like yours, and really appreciate all the support.
Yeah, same thing. More and more people have to know about this. And so for you to give us the time to speak about it, the importance of it, really, really appreciate it. And we're going to continue to talk to as many people as possible so they can join the pledge and join the community so that we can all make greater impact together.
So before we sign off, just one last thing. Where's the best place for people to go to learn more about joining Purpose Pledge?
The best resource is the website, and it's just purposepledge.org. And you can learn, a good first step is just to review the website. And there is a downloadable PDF where you can see all the details on all the 10 commitments. And so it has all the fine print. And so if you're considering joining, or you just want to learn more, then that's a good place to start. And then if you have further questions, please reach out.
Thank you. Thank you both.